going against Pathra that he's not running Frost Novas in his primary deck, because against Warrior, yes, this deck sometimes, you know, curves at you, but Frost Novas I think would be way, way, way too slow.
Yeah, the DawN in his primary list as well has 2 copies of Astromancer and the Archmage Antonidas, which a lot of players don't include at all, but some of them have them in their side list. So to have it in his main list against a Warrior is going to be very good for his matchup.
It's going to be a tough matchup here, and we'll see how it goes. We see DawN and Pathra kicking it off with the Mage and Warrior. The double Clockwork Gnome and Wrench Caliber is a relatively quick opening, and is it quick enough is my question.
I'm not sure. I haven't played from the Bomb Warriors perspective too much, but I think you want to keep some sort of earlier pressure. Like we've seen Rogues as well opt to play out SI7 agents, for example, over Miscreants just to get something more aggressive on the board and start wailing on the Mage. And we see Pathra does keep a Pathra Clockwork Goblin for that game plan.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the Wrench Caliber was thrown, and I think that can just lead to just nods from things along the lines of basically Mirror Image and some of the other smaller minions. The Wrench Caliber, if your opponent goes wide, often just doesn't do enough anyway, and you aren't really relying on bombs to win this game. You want to just lock out their board quickly and then push a lot of damage.
Right. Sometimes early chip damage can add up to the point where a couple of bombs does end up finishing the job, but to get to that point, you do need those early minions, and that's what Pathra was mulliganing for.
On the other side, DawN's opening hand, although it's always nice to have a Conjurer's Call in, is a little bit lackluster, I think. You know, not getting any of the elementals, which is mainly what for this single Sandbinder in the list is for, but not getting any of the elementals, Harrison's tech cards, Ziliax even, you know, not relevant for a while. DawN's probably just very happy he has this Arcane Intellect in hand.
Okay. Somebody ordered a bomb. Express mail service.
Yep. Paid extra for that one.
Yeah. Arcane Intellect coming out.
Yeah, this was just, I won't say life-saving, but it stopped DawN having a very, very poor opening game.
With the Giant pickup, we're going to see on coin the thing that Mage can do, where it's Elemental Vacation, play out the Giant for 2 mana, and then coin out the Conjurer's Calling. Very, very quick coming out from DawN if that's what he chooses to go for next turn. So Patra's going to have to figure out how she can deal with that. Obviously, she can't see that just yet, but
I honestly would not mind. We of course have the ultimate caster vision, but Omega Devastator, I feel like this game can spiral out of control way before turn 10 for Pathra. So I wouldn't mind the Omega Devastator played now, because then almost no matter what your opponent does next turn, you're feeling pretty safe. You have a 4/5, a 3/3, and then either rushing 5/5s or a Dinomatic, which is going to deal 5 to the board. So I feel like it almost opens up a win-win scenario, regardless of what DawN even does next turn. He could do powerful turns, and you still have answers.
Yeah, I would like to see the Devastator come out as well. Just push the board you already have. The bridge between turn 4 and 10 is very large. I don't think Pathra might. She might be, depending on what DawN's hand is, she might struggle to get to the point where this Omega Devastator Battlecry will be used to kill something.
Right.
She opts to shield block. This does set her up to go armor up shield slam if a Giant does come down from DawN. Fortunately for DawN, he has what we talked about earlier. He has the Elemental Vacation, Giant, Coin Conjurer's Calling. So even though Pathra can use shield slam to deal with one of these, she doesn't quite have the mana to deal with both. She could. Actually, she has to armor up this turn as well.
So that's the big problem for me, is this setting up shield slam makes you pretty much always float 2 mana randomly, right? Whereas if there was a 4/5 on the board now, like the turn would look so much better. It wouldn't be perfect, of course. You're still in trouble, but you're going to be in trouble no matter what if DawN does one of the most powerful plays you can do in the game.
Right.
Right? Like that's just going to happen. But I think it would have been a little bit more solid. Because the issue is, with this Militia Commander, for example, if you want to Militia Commander and go, then your turn ends with nothing on board.
Yeah, you're staring down a Giant, and you know your opponent has a Conjurer's Calling left.
And you can't even Militia Commander... there are so many options, but I think you might even either just Militia Commander Shield Slam, maybe, and save the 3/3? Because you can't do any damage preemptively to the Giant because you know there's a second Conjurers.
Right, any damage
so
put into it would be wasted.
Yes, there's no point. But maybe you do the preemptive damage by saving the minion. I mean, this is similar as well.
Yeah, taking off the minion that has more attack right now, developing more onto the board. I'm curious to see if DawN is going to try to chip off the armor or take a trade on the Clockwork Goblin and then go Conjurer's Calling. Could opt to also just play a Ziliax and say, I'm not going to Conjurer's Calling at all. He has a couple of options here. Especially with the Giant drawn, that's yet another option. Pathra is running 2 Brawls in her main list, so...
To be honest, it's even... not necessarily as powerful because it's a little bit more out of your control, but it's even Sorcerer's Apprentice, a couple of spells, and then the Mana Cyclone. But the only issue with that is you don't really want to give your opponent a good brawl with one big minion on board. So although it would generate a lot of value and maybe get you some crazy spells, and as if by by magic I summon the brawl into Patra's hand, But
well, suddenly Pathra does have a way to get ahead here. She could try to... The problem is everything else in her hand doesn't deal with a single minion on DawN's side right now. So with the Brawl being drawn, I wouldn't be surprised I wouldn't be surprised to see her just play the Brawl and say, all right, I need to win this 1 and 3, and that's how I win the game.
I think you just have to.
Yeah.
And also bear in mind, though, even if one giant, one of the big guys wins, then you've seen double Conjurer's Call now, so you can probably, especially with 7 armor, just deal with one giant for a turn or 2. Whoa, whoa. We saw yesterday, I think it was, unless all the games are blurring together, but Pathra went for a Dino-Matic against the Shark, plus 3 minions, and it didn't. It whiffed and just left the Shark alive. And there was a lot of discussion whether that was the right play or not between Pathra and some of the other American pros. But for me, I think you have to go for a bit more of a potentially more powerful play.
So at least with the main list, I don't believe Patra's going to be super favored. She does have some tools that help. She thinks perhaps she thinks that playing the Dino-Matic here might signal to DawN that she does not have a great way to answer this and might kind of bait him into playing more stuff onto the board, making the Brawl better.
The one point here is the 7 armor effectively negates 1 swing of the Grave Armor.
We've seen an Apprentice come down from DawN.
The problem is DawN doesn't have to overcommit to the board to have a good turn.
Right. I mean, you have 15 power on board. You don't need to do that a whole lot. You saw your opponent didn't really develop anything. Well, she developed a Dino-Matic, but that doesn't help her quite clear the board. The 4 power on her side does technically threaten the Grave Horror if she has just 1 more damage, or even a Militia Commander from hand could do the remaining 5 damage to the Grave Horror. Looks like it is going to be a Mana Cyclone turn from DawN. He's launching the missiles.
Especially after seeing 1 Shield Slam. In a roundabout way, DawN won't care too much about armor because you're going to destroy it anyway, right? You're putting so much damage that if you win the board here with minions like this, you end the game in like 2 turns anyway. So, oh wow, Fireball, a counter spell, Cinderstorm for some extra damage maybe, and also Research Project just isn't too bad. Maybe can mess around with Pathra a little bit, or dodge some bombs if DawN wants to go for a full hand at any given point.
I'm not sure if I like this too much from DawN. This opens him up to, I believe, a triple Warpath turn would... Oh no, it wouldn't clear the board. The Grave Horror is at 5 health.
I know. Also, to be honest, going into turn 7 with this hand, do you care if your opponent spends all the mana on triple Warpath?
You have an Astromancer.
You have Astromancer, you have Giant, and obviously Sea Giant won't be live again, but still you have strong plays to follow up with anyway, and then your opponent would just spend that turn doing nothing. Okay, Cyclone lived, and there's even Weapons Project as well to clean it up.
Pathra being patient with the Brawl did manage to get a little bit extra out of it, although she's still not in a great spot. The Mana Cyclone's not that threatening, but Astromancer's coming down next turn perhaps. There's still a Giant left in DawN's hand. He has threats lined up for quite a bit.
Oh, Rope Pressure. Is it going to happen again?
Is this the first nose door move of Grandmasters?
No, second.
Second?
Remember I asked you about it yesterday.
Oh, right.
Insta-killed it. But remember, I think Pathra was one of the players who suffered from the rope the other day, right?
Defending the gates here.
Get rid of that.
It's an expensive. It's a lot of resources going into it, yeah.
And but there's not much else Pathra can do. Like I said, the problem with the Omega Devastator is, well, it's still another 2 turns. Well, okay, 1 turn till it can become live, but it's huge.
Is she going to make it that long is the question.
Well, that was my point in playing it just on curve. Like, from turn 4 to 10 against this deck, against this mage deck,
they're not going to pass,
you
right?
could just die.
Yeah.
And now, just again, it's just what is the answer? I don't even know what the Discover answer is. Some kind of taunt?
Kind of. Not quite. I mean, if you play that, Dawn's just going to say, all right, I'm not going to... He might actually sink damage into it, perhaps, but I mean, you're on 15 health. I mean, from Dawn's perspective, he just has lethal setup.
Got Fireball in hand.
Yeah.
There's even, depending on the minion, Security Rover, obviously a unique one, but there's even Fireball and Cinderstorm from hand, which is just tons of damage. Like,
curious to see if Patra's going to play Weapons Project here just to gain the extra armor, or if she's just going to armor up. She does go Weapons Project.
You need to be as safe as possible. You gain 4 armor, right?
Still dead to Fireball, I believe. There's 15 damage on the board, and the Fireball from hand is going to close out the game for DawN.
And all the while, the Omega Devastator is in hand. That could have put forward just a little bit more pressure at least.
It may not have ended up, you know, in a win for Pathra, but it would have at least helped her fight for the board. I mean, this way she's dead on turn 9. The Devastator didn't do anything.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, I'm not saying it's 100% right or 100% wrong, but it just felt like a reasonable curve. And I feel like in this